So today I would like to talk about the International Maritime Research Board proposal, which has been proposed by the industry. So I think everybody knows the challenge facing the industry, and this is a big challenge. I think it's fair to say that we haven't seen such a technology transition since sails were replaced by the steam engine. So we know that we will be seeing new fuels, new conversion technologies, and new approaches to ship design. It's going to be a complete paradigm shift. The need's urgent. We really have to do this quickly. And to enable the transition requires research and technology development on a scale the industry hasn't seen before. And the key question is, what is the most efficient and effective way to facilitate the R&D and to accelerate the transition? So to put it into perspective, we'll have a quick look at some figures. So this shows research and development spend by sector. And apologies, it's a little bit of a messy slide, but this yellow line is shipping. And that shows that annually we spend about $1.6 billion a year, 1.6. To put that into perspective, the dark blue line is automotive. And the automotive sector invests about $130 billion a year. And if we look at another smaller transport segment, aviation invests about $16 billion a year. So shipping is well behind other transport sectors. As an industry, we think and we've proposed the solution to be an International Maritime Research Board, the IMRB. This would be an independent body within the IMO framework to be funded by mandatory contributions by the industry, and it would fund to an International Maritime Research Fund, the IMRF, and the IMRF would fund the IMRB. So the IMRB would support research and development projects, and it would be about facilitating research and accelerating the transition. It wouldn't be about funding technology deployment. So it was introduced at MEPC 75, further refined at MEPC 76, including regulatory draft text, and it will be further considered at MEPC 77. We believe the proposals are mature and they could be very quickly agreed and implemented if we have sufficient support from IMO member states. One thing to make clear is it's not an MBM. It's only about accelerating research and development. This is, unfortunately, it's quite a messy slide. I'm guessing these will be distributed after the event, so you can study it after the conference if it's interesting. But what this shows is that we have a very robust enforcement mechanism for every ton of fuel, the International Maritime Research Fund will receive a levy of about $2 per ton. Once you've paid that $2 per ton, the ship will be issued with a confirmation statement. And at the end of the year, the ship gets a certificate that will be issued by the Flag Administration. So what this means is the ship will have to carry this certificate of contributions. And that can be verified by port state control. What's important is this minimizes burden at the same time as allowing both the flag and the port state to verify compliance. So it will be funded, the IMRF will be funded by the shipping industry via a mandatory payment. The quantum, a lot of people have criticized the quantum of $2 per ton of fuel. However, this will very quickly provide a multi-billion-dollar fund. And I would reiterate, it's not intended to be an MBM. The quantum is appropriate to fund research and development. The payment architecture is robust, verifiable, and it minimizes burden for all stakeholders. And it includes a mechanism for port state control. So we believe it meets all of the key requirements. If we look at the Maritime Research Board, to be funded by the research fund, this will fund research into ultra-low and zero carbon ships. As I've said, it's not about technology deployment, it's about research and development, but it will include pilot projects and technology proving installations. So we've proposed quite the detailed proposal, including a board of directors, the chief office holders, a professional secretariat, basically everything that the IMRB needs to function. And the board of directors would report to IMO MEPC. So there would be IMO oversight. So although it would be a quasi-independent body, IMO would have a supervisory role. And the proposal includes conflict of interest provisions for the board of directors. So I'd like to talk about 3 common misconceptions. And this is important because there has been quite a lot of criticism of the proposal. And these criticisms, I believe, stem from misconceptions and mischaracterizations. So the 3 main ones, the IMRF is an MBM and the quantum's too low. The second one, we don't need an IMRB because we already know what the technologies are and all we need is commercial deployment. And the third one is the IMRF is a midterm measure, should be integrated with MBM discussions at IMO. And I'm going to answer each of these in turn, but what I would suggest is to read the documents, because the documents provide everything in detail, much more detail than I can give today. So misconception 1 is that the IMRF is an MBM. We have been very clear it's not an MBM. It's not intended to be an MBM. It's not intended to undermine MBM discussions, and it's not intended to change behavior. An MBM is about changing behavior and giving the right financial pressure to do so. The IMRB is only about accelerating research and development. The quantum is appropriate for the IMRB. Clearly, it's not appropriate as an MBM, but it's not an MBM. Accelerating R&D is urgently required regardless of which mid and long-term measures are agreed. If we don't do the IMRB, the need for research and development doesn't go away. All we lose is an offer by the industry to fund it ourselves. And support for the IMRF does not prejudice positions on the MBM debate at IMO. People can support the IMRB regardless of their position on MBM. Misconception 2 is we already know what the technologies are, and all we need is commercial deployment. For small and near coastal ships, that may be true. It's not true for large ships engaged in transoceanic voyages. There are several fuels with high-profile advocacy, and we've heard from some of them today. And to be clear, I think we very much agree that fuels like ammonia and hydrogen have a lot of potential, but the technology pathways are far from certain. In document MEPC 7771, we provide a report which was done by Ricardo Engineering. Ricardo Engineering are extremely well-respected engineering consultancy. And Ricardo identified over 260 potential projects for the IMRB to support. Accelerating R&D is urgently needed, regardless of which mid and long-term measures are agreed. There's an overwhelming consensus on this. As I say, if we don't do the IMRB, the need for R&D does not stop. We need the R&D anyway. And we truly believe that the IMRF with the IMRB are the most efficient and effective ways to do this. And misconception 3 is the IMRF is a midterm measure, so it should be integrated with the MBM discussion at IMO. To be very clear, the initial strategy explicitly recognizes the research proposal as a short-term measure. Even optimistic assessments agree that reaching an agreement on an MBM at IMO is going to be quite challenging. The need for R&D is urgent. We need it quickly. We can't afford to wait for the MBM discussions to finalize. If we integrate it into the MBM discussion, it will be too late to be relevant. To be clear, the R&D would still be done, but we lose an opportunity to have a very efficient fund entirely funded by industry. What we'll probably see is that governments will have to step in to provide funding. So if we look at the journey, we know that 150 years ago, ships were sailing ships. we had this revolution to steamships, and that completely transformed the industry. In the 1960s, we had a transformation to containerization. And there's a nice picture of the very first deep sea fully cellular container ship. And that only entered service in 1969. Now we can see in 50 years how the container segment has transformed with these huge, ultra-large container carriers. And we're going to go through another transition as we decarbonize. What the industry will look like in 20 years, I don't think anybody can honestly give you an answer for that, other than to say it will be a different industry. So in summary, the industry needs a massive increase in research and development. The IMRB and IMRF are mature proposals to deliver this increase with a mandatory levy on fuel at zero cost to member states, with low administrative burden, and with an effective verification mechanism. It's not an MBM. It's not intended to change behavior. It's only intended to fund research and development. The matter's urgent. We need this to be done quickly. If we integrate it with the MBM discussions, we lose an opportunity. And finally, the one takeaway, if I could ask you to take away one point from this presentation, it's this: what's the alternative? If IMO doesn't support the IMRF and IMRB, what else do? We still need to do the research and development. Somebody has to fund it. What you lose is a very efficient mechanism funded entirely by the industry with low burden to everybody that could be agreed very quickly. If we don't do that, we have to do something else. And the question is, what else is the world going to do that's better? I really don't believe there is a better alternative. None of the alternatives are as good. And this doesn't prejudice positions on MBMs. So that's it. Thank you for listening.